Chapter 1. The Cloth that Shook the World. In a darkened chamber in Turin, Italy, a length of ancient linen rests beneath glass, hushed in silence, bathed in soft golden light, silent, fragile. Yet its fibers carry a weight that defies centuries. Faintly etched like a shadow between worlds is the face of a man. Bruised, blooded, pierced, a silent witness staring across 2 millennia. Some call it the most studied artifact in human history. Others call it the boldest fraud ever conceived. This is the Shroud of Turin. For centuries, millions have gazed upon this image. Some whisper, some weep, some fall to their knees. And always the question rises, is this the burial cloth of Jesus? If true, it is not merely linen. It is history's most sacred relic. A witness to crucifixion, passion and resurrection, a fragment of eternity stitched into time. If false, it is a deception so breathtaking it fooled popes, kings, scientists and skeptics across the ages. Either way, it demands our attention. Imagine the claim, a single cloth commanding the attention of theologians, historians and laboratories. Every test deepening the mystery, every theory sharpening the riddle. The shroud resists dismissal, too ancient to ignore, too mysterious to explain, too haunting to categorize. It remains, like the man it portrays, impossible to forget. And here's why it matters now. In an age of deep fakes and artificial realities, the shroud stands apart, either as God's witness or humanity's warning. Before we continue, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the rest of this journey. What you're about to hear may shake your faith or anchor it forever. But here is the challenge. If this cloth truly bears Christ's image, you are staring not at history but eternity. What does that mean for how you live tomorrow? Chapter 2. The first glimpses of the shroud. The shroud entered recorded history in the 14th century in a tiny French village called Lire. Whispers spread like fire. A cloth bearing the crucified image of Christ. Pilgrims clogged the roads. Some gasped in awe. Others wept, believing they were standing at Calvary's threshold. The linen was no longer fabric. It was encounter. The air trembled with devotion. Knees bent. Prayers rose. Merchants sold tokens of faith. To believers, the shroud carried not cloth, but the presence of Christ. But not all were convinced. Local bishops scowled. To them it was fraud, a dangerous trick painted to deceive, devised to enrich. Controversy exploded with each display. Was this Christ's burial cloth preserved by God, or a scheme spun to exploit devotion for gold? Even the church wavered, at times sanctioning veneration, at times forbidding it. A relic caught between wonder and suspicion, and yet the shroud endured. In 1532, flames tore through a chapel, its edges scorched. Priests risked their lives to rescue it from fire's hungry grasp. Wars raged across Europe. Relics were looted, smashed, burned. But somehow this one cloth survived again and again, as if history itself refused to let it die. By the 16th century, it was carried to Turin, Italy, where it remains. Millions came to behold it. Kings bowed, peasants prayed, skeptics sneered. The sharp question still cuts. If real, where was it for the first 13 centuries? The Gospels mention linen. Early Christians treasured relics. So why the silence? Was it hidden by providence, preserved for a doubting world, or crafted by cunning medieval hands? Mystery tightened its grip. This is the crossroads. Do we trust only what archives can prove, or accept that God preserves his witness in ways that defy human records? And the takeaway pierces. When evidence is incomplete, do you dismiss faith, or let mystery drive you deeper into truth beyond history's gaps? Chapter 3. The image that shouldn't exist. The first mystery of the shroud is not its age or journey, but the image itself, a portrait that should not exist. Look closely. The cloth is not painted, not dyed, not drawn, no pigments soaking the fibers, just a faint, ghostly sepia figure across the weave. In natural light it nearly vanishes. A whisper on linen. But tilt it, magnify it, photograph it, and a face emerges unlike any ever seen. In 1898, Italian lawyer and amateur photographer Secondo Pia placed glass plates into his camera, capturing the shroud for the first time. When the negative developed, he staggered back in shock. For staring out was the face of a crucified man, eyes closed, beard matted, crowned with thorns. The image was reversed like a photographic negative, centuries before photography was invented. A technology out of time, branded into threads no brush had touched. Scientists raced to explain it. Some claimed medieval genius, others chemical accident. Yet none have ever replicated its haunting precision. Every attempt fails. Heat, acid, pigment, all collapse under scrutiny. The shroud's image remains unique, stubbornly resistant to human imitation. Under microscopes, the mystery deepens. The image rests only on the outermost fibrils of each thread, not soaked in, not brushed on, as if seared by light itself. And then came another revelation. The image contains three-dimensional information, encoded centuries before science could decode it. When run through modern imaging, a full relief of a crucified body appeared. Eyes sunken, limbs contoured. The linen itself held data beyond comprehension. The shroud whispers of power beyond forgery, beyond science, beyond time. Was it a burst of light? A trace of resurrection itself burned into cloth? Here's the bridge. The shroud confronts our arrogance. When knowledge fails, what do? Scoff or admit God may have left his mark? And the takeaway stings. When confronted with mysteries that defy reason, do you dismiss them? Or dare to believe the impossible might point directly to Christ? Chapter 4, Science versus Faith, the Carbon Dating Bombshell. By the late 20th century, the shroud had become the most studied artifact on Earth. For believers, it was sacred. For skeptics, a challenge demanding proof. In 1988, the moment came. A tiny sliver, scarcely larger than a postage stamp, was cut from one corner of the cloth. That fragment was sent to 3 world-class laboratories, Oxford, Zurich and Tucson. Radiocarbon dating would decide the question science had chased for centuries. Was this the burial cloth of Jesus Christ, or a medieval forgery crafted to fool pilgrims and fuel centuries of devotion? When results were announced, they struck like thunder. Between 1260 and 1390 AD, the labs declared. Medieval, 1,000 years too young for Calvary. Headlines screamed, medieval fake exposed. Television hosts mocked, documentaries ridiculed, skeptics rejoiced. Millions of faithful felt betrayed, as if the cloth itself had crumbled in their hands. Yet doubts surfaced instantly. Why test a corner blackened by the fire of 1532? Why choose the most visibly worn and repaired section of the cloth? Textile experts examined the weave. They found cotton fibers stitched into the corner, foreign threads spliced into linen, evidence of a medieval repair. Chemists probed further. The tested corner carried dyes and coatings absent from the rest of the fabric. The sample was contaminated, a patch, not the shroud itself. If true, the 1988 results proved nothing about forgery. They proved only that the wrong piece had been tested. Science measured repair, not relic. But the damage was irreversible. Headlines shouted louder than corrections. Public opinion turned. For millions, the shroud was dismissed as myth before the deeper story could be told. And perhaps this moment reveals more about us than about the linen itself. How quickly we cling to headlines, how swiftly we discard mysteries that challenge reason. Faith is not blind, it examines evidence. But when science seems to contradict belief, do you abandon trust or search deeper beyond the laboratory's reach? And the takeaway seers, when the world mocks the things of God, will you follow the crowd or will you stand firm, daring to dig deeper? Chapter 5, the counter-evidence. After the 1988 carbon dating, skeptics sneered. Case closed, they said. The shroud was medieval, nothing more. But the linen itself refused to be silenced. Under microscopes, new secrets emerged. Pollen grains clung to the threads like fingerprints of forgotten journeys. They were not European. They were Middle Eastern. Some came from plants that bloom only near Jerusalem, others from the arid cliffs by the Dead Sea. How could desert flowers have lodged themselves in medieval France? Then came the blood. Forensic tests confirmed it. Not paint, not pigment, but real human blood. Type AB, rare in Europe, common in the Middle East. The stains tell a story written in crimson. Scourge marks striping the back, nails driven through wrists and feet. A chest wound wide as a Roman spear, Even more, the blood shows serum separation, plasma and red cells divided, a detail invisible to the naked eye, unknown to medieval artists, yet present here. Anatomical precision deepens the riddle. The man of the shroud bears injuries exactly as the Gospels describe. The crown of thorns, the scourging, the piercing of his side. No painter could imagine what only modern medicine would later confirm. This is not artistry. It is forensic testimony, centuries ahead of its time. Extra-biblical texts whisper too. The Gospel of Peter speaks of wonders surrounding Christ's burial. Jubilees and Enoch speak of knowledge sealed for the end of days. Could the shroud itself be one such hidden witness? Linen preserved for a skeptical generation, crying out, "This is my son." Prophecy to practice. Evidence can support faith, but it cannot replace it. God leaves signs, but he still demands trust beyond the microscope and the lab. If this is opening your eyes, share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear them. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Takeaway. What more do you need to believe? If Christ's blood and image cry from linen, how will you answer today, tomorrow, and at the final day? Chapter 6. Fire, Preservation and the Hand of Providence. In 1532, flames roared through the chapel of Chambay, France. Inside, the shroud was locked in a silver casket. Silver melted, molten drops seared the folded linen. Fire should have devoured it instantly. Yet the mysterious image, the face, the body, remained untouched. Only symmetrical burns mark where the silver fell. Priests wept as they pulled the scorched cloth from the inferno. They patched its wounds with care, and still the image endured, serene amid the scars. To believers, this was no coincidence, it was providence, a relic preserved by God himself, marked by fire but spared for the generations to come. To skeptics, it was mere chance, yet even they admit the odds defy reason. Linen should have turned to ash. Instead, it emerged like gold refined in flame. The shroud's history is written in survival. Wars swept Europe. Relics were stolen, shattered, lost. But this one cloth endured again and again, as if protected. Some say its scars are part of its testimony, beauty mingled with brokenness, perfection carrying wounds, just as Christ's resurrected body still bore nail prints for Thomas to see. Paul wrote, "We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed," 2 Corinthians 4:8. The shroud itself seems to echo that verse in fabric. Prophecy to practice, your faith will be tested by fire too. Trials will scorch, life will leave scars, but what remains, ashes or testimony, depends on where you stand. The shroud's endurance is not just about cloth. It is about God's power to preserve truth, even when everything else burns. Takeaway, when the flames of life surround you, will you crumble? Or like the shroud, will your scars become the very proof of God's preservation? Chapter 7. Hidden Prophecy in Linen. The shroud is more than artifact. For many, it is prophecy stitched into fabric, a silent sermon preserved in linen when words alone would not suffice. Isaiah 53 describes the suffering servant. By his stripes we are healed. On the shroud, those stripes are real. Whip marks slash across the back like thunder made visible. The wounds echo the Gospels, the scourging, the piercing, the cruel crown of thorns. Even the blood and water at the side wound mirror John 19:34 with eerie precision. The shroud doesn't just tell the story, it illustrates it. Every lash, every thorn, every nail pressed into the fibers as if to shout, "This happened." Burial customs strengthened the case. Jewish law required linen wrappings. The Gospels record Joseph of Arimathea binding Jesus in a clean shroud. Could this cloth be that very one? If so, then we hold in our gaze not merely relic, but fulfilled prophecy. Not just evidence, but a living witness. Jesus promised the sign of Jonah, 3 days in the belly of the earth, followed by resurrection. The shroud may be that sign, bearing scars of death and hints of light. Extra-biblical voices deepen the intrigue. The Gospel of Nicodemus recounts wonders at Christ's burial. Jubilees speaks of heavenly records preserved for a future generation when faith would waver. Could the shroud be one such record, a heavenly tablet written not with ink but with blood? A relic meant to resurface when skepticism reigned supreme? Prophecy to practice. The shroud teaches that God writes truth not only in parchment but in wounds, not only in scrolls but in scars. His message bleeds into history itself. The question is no longer academic. If this linen whispers Isaiah's prophecy, will you let the servant's stripes heal your soul or walk away unmoved? Takeaway. The cloth asks not what is it, but who is he? And more urgently, what will you do with him? Chapter 8. Skeptics and believers in collision. Few relics ignite storms like this one. For some, the shroud is history's most brazen hoax. For others, it is the holiest witness left on earth. Skeptics cling to the 1988 tests. Forgery, they say, a clever trick of medieval hands. Richard Dawkins mocks, a fake, nothing more. For them, the shroud proves only gullibility. Yet millions kneel before it as though before Calvary itself. They touch glass with trembling fingers, whispering prayers, weeping as if time itself collapsed into that linen. Believers speak of a strange hush. They describe air heavy with eternity, as though heaven leans closer in that chamber. Doubt shrinks in the weight of such silence. Popes themselves have joined the chorus. John Paul II called it a mirror of the gospel. Benedict XVI said it was an icon written in blood. Pope Francis described it as an icon of love, not of proof, urging the faithful to see in it the very face of Christ crucified for humanity. And yet the Church withholds final judgment, never declaring it authentic, never discarding it. A paradox, an image revered but officially unresolved. Perhaps that tension is the point. The shroud is not meant to erase doubt, but to confront it, forcing a decision from both the skeptic's mind and the believer's heart. Fraud or prophecy, illusion or revelation, no one leaves the shroud unchanged. It demands allegiance, one way or the other. Scripture reminds us, faith is confidence in what we hope for, assurance about what we do not see. Hebrews 11:1. The shroud stands exactly in that space. Prophecy to practice. The shroud mirrors your daily collision between belief and disbelief, surrender and pride. Its question is the same as Christ's, who do you say I am? Takeaway, when mystery presses in, will you scoff or kneel? The shroud cannot stay neutral, and neither can you. Chapter 9, Technology reveals the face. For centuries, the shroud was studied with the naked eye. But modern technology opened doors ancient pilgrims could never have imagined. In the 1970s, NASA scientists examined the cloth with state-of-the-art imaging equipment. They discovered something no one expected. The image carried three-dimensional information. Feed it into a computer, and a relief of a man's body emerges. Not flat pigment, but encoded data written in linen threads. Imagine a medieval forger crafting an image so advanced it would take 20th century science to decode it. The idea strains belief. Then came digital reconstructions. Software sharpened the faint outlines until a face appeared, bruised, swollen, crowned with thorns, a silent witness to the passion. For some it was like peering into the tomb itself. For others, it was like looking into the very face of God. Recent AI reconstructions went even further, producing lifelike portraits of the man of the shroud. Not an icon, but a face, haunting, human, divine. Skeptics dismiss them as illusions. Believers see the unveiled face of Christ. Either way, technology cannot escape the mystery. It only amplifies it. Here lies the deeper shock. If this is his face, preserved in linen, then we are staring at history and eternity at once, both time and transcendence. Prophecy to practice. Technology can reveal detail but not meaning. Machines cannot save your soul. Only the one whose face is imprinted here can. Takeaway. If you could look into the face of Jesus, what would you do? Scroll past it, or fall to your knees before the living Lord? Chapter 10, The Final Witness. Empires collapse. Cities sink. Thrones crumble, but one fragile cloth endures, not marble, not gold, but linen, carrying an image no fire could erase. The Shroud of Turin is not just a relic, it is a battlefield where science and faith collide, and a stage where eternity itself breaks through time. Look closely. The scourge marks, the crown of thorns, the wound in his side. This is the gospel not written in ink, but in blood and fibre. Forensic scientists call it an impossible image. Believers call it the first photograph of the resurrection. Skeptics call it forgery, yet still the cloth refuses to yield. If it is false, it is the most ingenious fraud in history. But if it is true, it is the most explosive evidence Earth has ever known. And if Christ lives, then everything changes. The shroud is not curiosity, it is confrontation. It whispers, shouts and thunders, "This is my son, will you believe?" Prophecy declares, "Behold, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him." Revelation 1:7. Soon no relic will be needed. He will stand before you. Until that day, the shroud hangs between history and heaven, between skepticism and surrender, between doubt and destiny, as a final witness to resurrection. Its message is relentless. He was here. He is risen. He is coming again. The linen bears his absence and his victory. Prophecy to practice, the shroud demands your verdict. Will you treat Christ as artifact or as Lord? Nod at the image or kneel before the Savior? Time is short, eternity is certain, and the decision cannot be delayed. If this shook you, subscribe and share it now, because when the trumpet sounds, the choice will already be sealed. Cheers!